Hello and welcome to God Logic. My name is Temko and today we're taking a look at a game called Sol Zero, Mars Colonization. Now the game is a one-man show, and for a one-man show, it's pretty damn impressive. This one-man show goes by the name of Chondrite Games, and it's releasing this game on Steam on the 15th of January for the price of $6. So this is a bargain for a my opinion, really decent game, and I'll show you in a second why I think it's a really decent game. But before we dive into that, let me run through the options menu and some of the downsides of the options menu and some of the upsides of what a game is adding to the genre. So the game is a sim game where you are simulating the first 100 colonists on Mars. That's its goal. It's trying to simulate the experience of building a colony on Mars with the first 100 or so people living there. And you have to do this by strategically managing resources such as water and food, and making sure that meteorite showers and dust devils and the like do not destroy your settlement. So let's dive into the training tutorial where I will show you the options menu, and from there we can dive into the actual gameplay modes. Now, because the game is built in Unity, half the options menu is outside the game, which I personally don't like, but many Unity games do it this way, and it's so prevalent you can't really judge a game on it, but I still don't like it, so there's that. The options menu outside of the game, where you start up the game, displays resolution options, windowed or full screen modes, as well as some graphical presets. Those graphical presets don't really tell you anything. They're like bad, okay, sort of good, fabulous. So I put fabulous on, and that's really it. I'm just not sure what it does. You'd have to test that to see what the impact is on you. But the game is not that hard for a system to run. It's pretty light. It's pretty well optimized, going by Unity. So it'll run on most potatoes, to be very honest. But even so, it's really important to have good descriptions on graphics. But yeah, it doesn't have that. So another issue I have before we dive into in-game options, which also exists while you're in the game. There's two issues with the UI. One, it does not constrain mouse to window. My mouse can move out of window. That is really annoying. I hope they fix that. The second issue I have is that the minimap is for all intents and purposes useless. It is so tiny. Like, look at this map. Look how big this map is. It's all blank area. This is all blank area. I cannot do anything in all this black area. But the minimap still counts as your map, instead of just having this tiny area as the full size of your available minimap. And it does this in all map modes, so that's kind of annoying. I wish you could make the map bigger or something like that. So that isn't there. So those are my two major gripes with the game's UI. There's some minor stuff, like you're not being able to pan and scroll with your middle mouse button. You can zoom in and out though, so that's pretty good. And the view point is locked in this specific point for isometric view, so you can't rotate your camera either. But I'm gonna assume that's because the fact that it was done by one dude. And this is his first title. There are limits to what you can do as one person, so I don't really count that against the game. The game still looks pretty decent from this specific viewport. So let's get into the in-game options menu. There's first some options regarding the notifications. You can display notifications on or off, on resources on or off. So notifications are in the top left, and what they do is they display things like you're running out of food, you need more water, stuff like that. It's pretty important to have those on, I feel. Resources in the top right, they display what kind of resources you have available. I don't see any reason to ever turn these off, so there's that. Scroll speed, which decides how fast the edge panning and scrolling will be. You can turn this on or off. I put it pretty high because I like it pretty high, but you can put it lower if you need more control over how far you scroll. And then the game speed, half speed, 1x speed, and double speed. I would prefer the game had 5x speed, and the developer has said he has it on his wish list to do that. It just isn't possible currently because of some physics bugs that will break on lower end systems. But for now, double speed is all that there is. I wish there was more because the game is pretty slow, but we will have to do with that. Graphics wise, outside of the outside menu presets, there's some anti-aliasing options here, as well as VSync, nice shadows, which again doesn't explain what it means. I'm gonna assume this is dynamic shadows. Vignette on or off, which is good, as well as colorblind mode, which is obviously amazing. I love it when games include colorblind mode. Outside of graphics, there's two audio sliders for sounds and volume in terms of music, so that's pretty good. Sounds are like things in the game, like explosions and stuff like that, so that's pretty good, and like your astronaut speech and stuff like that. And music volume is music volume. So there's a very limited set of music in general in the game, and it's really, really loud in places. So the developer really hasn't had a balance up and down yet, so you're going to have to play with it. But it's really, really low. And even then, I felt the music was still very loud. But it really depends on the soundtrack and stuff like that, because there is quite a bit of imbalance there between soundtracks. So I wish the developer would patch like the equalization in there. But nonetheless, you have 2 volume sliders. You can manage that quite well yourself. And then lastly, there is a controls tab, which displays a rundown of all the available controls. These are not rebindable, which is a shame, but they are pretty decent, so it's not terrible. Most of the controls are done by mouse anyway. Most of the things you do with keyboard are moving your screen around a little bit. And cycling maybe through astronauts, which is the hotkey Q, but even that you can do through your buttons and stuff like that, so that's not really an issue. So that really is that. And you spawn disaster if you're feeling a bit suicidal, which I would never use. So like that's it. Controls are pretty simple. The game is pretty simple to play as well. All of it comes from planning and its abilities. So that is your options menu in a nutshell. Those are all the available options. There's one more thing on the show which I really, really love. This little question mark here brings up a interface that explains every single thing in the game. This is absolutely amazing. I wish every game had this glossary. And I know lots of AAA titles do, like The Witcher, have a glossary that explains all the things. But a lot of smaller titles, or lots of titles that don't have this kind of UI interface, don't. They leave it like to a 5-minute tutorial in the game and then tell you to go, good luck, have fun. If you can't figure it out, there's the internet and a Wikipedia article. This game says, no, we're explaining everything, how you get it, why you get it, what it does, what it requires, how it functions. Everything is explained. I really, really love that. So that is really, really good. Okay, so let me jump out of this training menu, back to the main menu, and start up an actual game and show you what the game has to offer overall. Let's get to it. So, gameplay. The gameplay in Sol Zero starts off excruciatingly slow, and if you cannot get past that, this is not the game for you at any price point. It takes about an hour and a half of gameplay for this game to really get going. And I'm going to show you the first couple of minutes, then jump out of that map, and then show you a map a bit further ahead to keep things rolling. Now, each map has a different composition of elements: water, methane, gypsum, clay, and ore. And the map has challenges, such as getting a colony of 6 without any deaths, getting terraforming going, and getting a Martian city of over 100 population. And various maps have these different compositions of resources, such as water, which has a bit more on the Erysia Mons. You have Siondia, which is less water but more gypsum, and you have everything up to, I'm not gonna pronounce that, the Planium Borum, I'm sorry, which has no gypsum or clay at all, with making it a lot harder to get resources you need. Now there's a couple of maps, and there's also a map builder. I'm not gonna show the map builder because that requires restarting a new client, and which will mess up the video quite badly. So it's pretty simple. I can run it down in a few minutes. You can do terrain up, terrain down, add resources, remove resources, and add some vanity rocks. Now, you probably don't have an image of that yet, so let's get started with the game. Before you dive into the game mode, you have 3 difficulty levels. None for natural disasters, normal amounts of natural disasters, which is 1 in every 5 minutes, and frequent, which is a lot faster. And you have mission challenges that do not count if you do none. So we're going to do it normal. And bam, Earth, rocket, build a rocket, send it to Mars. Now, it's pretty cool that they've done this with contemporary technology. So this is something we could theoretically build today on Earth if we wanted to. We're probably not gonna, because it costs way more money than we would ever want to spend, but we can. Now, what the game does is gives you an option to send a rocket to Mars every 120 souls. And 120 souls translates to about every 5 or so minutes in game time. And the first rocket, they say, and they suggest a couple of suggestions here, which you can do. They say send some rovers, explore the area, find out what resources there are, and also bring some supplies for future colonists. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to add 2 rovers here. We're going to add the methane extractor, and we're going to add a couple of crates of resources, filling up our rocket. This is the maximum limit. And then you launch the rocket, and it sends it to space. I'm going to skip this here just to speed this all up a bit. It goes to Mars, and you can select the landing zone for your rocket. Now, once you have the landing zone selected, you can start exploring the area and planning for future astronauts and colonists to come in. So I'm going to pull out this rover, Gonna put it, I'm moving around. And there's a pretty cool feature where rovers explore what is in the area. So you can do explore, and you see this little area come up around the rover, and it just starts exploring. And you don't know what's exploring. Well, there's a thing for that too. Right here on the minimap, press a button, and bam, resource overlay view. So what this does, I can even plan a route here. It's pretty nice. I can plan a route. I can say, Mr. Rover, you go ahead and explore this entire area for me. I really want to know what is over here, so I know where I can build my future colony. I'm gonna put them in a zigzag area. There we go. I'm gonna grab a second rover. Say explore route, Mr. Rover. You go on ahead and explore this area here, because we really want to know what is going on in these various areas. Now, these maps are not randomized, so if you've started one settlement and you restart it, all the resources are going to be in the same spot. So that makes restarting a map quite a bit less dodgy than it would be in some other games. This is not a roguelike anything. The game is a pure sim game, a pure sim builder that really tries to get you to build a settlement of about 100 or so colonists. But as you can see, right now, I can just put a methane extractor up that does its work on its own. I cannot do anything anymore. From this point forward, I can maybe like get some new directions for my rovers, but this is the gameplay for me. I can sit back and watch the screen unfold because there's no actions for me to take. And this is what I meant with the excruciatingly slow pace of the game at the start. Because the game is so intense, once you get enough micromanagement going, with various astronauts, buildings, explorations, expansions, keeping everything healthy, keeping everything repaired, the game starts to get more micro-intensive later, and that is pretty good. That's where the game really kicks into gear. Up until that point, which is around the point about 15 or so I keep saying settlers, 15 or so colonists, it isn't. It is really slow, and I implore the developer to find a way to fix this, because I feel personally that this is the biggest hurdle for the game currently. It plays pretty well, even with some glitches and issues here and there in terms of physics and collision detection, but it plays pretty well overall, and the pacing initially is really holding it back in my opinion. Even with a ×2, it is still really slow. We need at least a ×10 initially. So yeah, but enough of that. Enough of that. Let me jump out of this map and show you a map a little bit more advanced, where you can see how various details of the gameplay interact. So we're going to go to my Gusev Crater map, and I'm going to resume and load into my map with my gameplay. What you can see here is a different kind of map. The map has a different composition of resources. The map has a different layout. And the map is a bit more advanced in terms of what I have built. So as you can see, there's hallways here. There's the square four-way intersections. There's greenhouses for food. There are some farms that are on the Martian soil for food. Solar panels for energy. A small rocket, a big rocket, which is the one that brings in colonists. Some water generation, food generation, and a bunch of colonists that keep things going inside. So what we're going to do is build a four-way hallway here, just so we can have some more expansion going forward. And this is basically the core concept of the game. You expand further and further, building more buildings, building more capsules, more hallways, and connecting more things together. And you have to keep this all powered up, and you have to keep adding more food and various other things. Now, one of the things you can start doing eventually is get a mining machine as well as a refinery that allows you to upgrade certain things. For example, in the biology lab, you can upgrade the strains of food that you are going to grow. And the strains of food that you can grow help you create better food supplies on Mars. So that means eventually I won't need these greenhouses. I'll have farms that handle this. So there's a transition period as well, early game to mid game to late game, where you get these weak farms where you need quite a few of, until you have these farms that are upgraded and you can support more colonists with these upgrades. Now it took me about 3 hours of gameplay and about restarting the game twice to get where I am right now. And at this point, the game does kick into gear. There's various things going on. As you can see, there's some issues with my energy supply. I don't have enough energy. I have to fix that really fast. I'm going to build a solar panel here. And I'm going to build a second solar panel as well here, just so I have a backup place with a couple of solar panels. And you have to keep these things balanced. And I have 4 astronauts running around. You only start with 1 initially, obviously. I have this forklift that automatically unloads and loads stuff where they need to go. You see, it's going to move over here and finish the solar panel so this astronaut can do something else. And things like here, I can refuel this rocket and launch it up into space. Well, if I load this lander up, I'm gonna end up with not enough facilities for my colonists, so that I can't leave this lander. I have to leave it here, and I have to build a room for my colonists. Sadly, I don't have a space really for this room, so I have to build a couple of hallways first to get the necessary space going. And this is the game. This is the basic concept of the game. If you do not enjoy this type of gameplay, this is not the game for you. But if you enjoy these consistent, methodical builder games, like Banished was last year, then this is definitely a good game once you get past the initial progression that is so slow. Now, I'm going to go out of the game. Oh, before I leave, actually, let me show you one more thing. In the building menu, there's quite a few other things you have to unlock. And there's radar, and there's 3D printing, and there's terraforming. So there is definitely progression you have to get to. It is not a flat, one-tired game like Banished was, where you could build things and you're done. There were no upgrades. There were no secondary tires. There's definitely upgrades here, from greenhousing to farming, and from solar panels to geothermal plants. And there's definitely this progression once you advance to a higher tier colony. And eventually this colony is going to be self-sufficient, and all your rockets are going to do is just send more people in and nothing else, because you don't need anything else from Earth anymore. Now, that is the base gameplay. I really enjoy it. Aside of the initial startup, I feel it is a very well put together simulator game, especially at a price point of $6. I cannot repeat this often enough. For $6, this game is a steal. It's amazing. But it does have its drawbacks. So on the other side, I wouldn't pay much more than $6 for it because of these issues it has. Now, there's one more thing I want to show before I call this video to an end. That is that if you press this button, you go to a different type of view. Not Mars. No, you have Ceres, Europa, the Moon, and you have the Steam Workshop with custom maps. So there are other areas in the galaxy or in the solar system you can build your base on and go from there. So if you're tired of the red, you can go to gray or white. So there is that. There is definitely some variety of maps, and you can build your own maps if you want, with how little or how many resources and variations and creators you want to have in them. You can put them in Steam Workshops, so that there is some modding here. There's no modding of the game mechanics as far as I have been aware, but nonetheless there is definitely some replayability in map building as well. So that is the game in a nutshell. I am very surprised and very pleased with the amount of tuning and polish this game has for a one-man studio's first title, but I cannot deny there's definitely some major issues with the game, such as the fractured options menu outside and inside the game, the lack of volume control in the main menu where the music is very loud, and the very limited amount of music in general, as well as the initial pacing being ridiculously slow. But once you get past that chunk, the game really shines, and it is really deserving of getting some attention. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you can check out Sol Zero Mars Colonization on the 15th of January on Steam for $6, and there's a sale in the first week, I believe, so it's a bit cheaper than that. And you can support this one-man studio's first live product, which is amazing. I've never done it. I don't think I ever will. That's why I'm criticizing games, because I'm not actually be able of building them. But if you enjoyed this video, you can press the subscribe button below, you can press the like button and help us out here, and if you hated this video, press the dislike button. It's there for a reason, and if you have something to share with us, just leave a comment. We will always try to sort of maybe reply to you, and we will see you next time right here on Guy Logic.